So usually in part 2, in my reviews, and buyer's guides, I talk about the controllers. Obviously I can't talk about the controllers for this because it is its own controller. I'll just talk really quickly about any of the accessories that came with it. It does have a battery pack, which I used to have, but it stopped working, so I threw it out. Where it was just something you plug into the wall and then plug it into the AC adapter spot here, and then you would be able to play it for X amount of hours without using batteries. It was really just like a big rechargeable battery. You can also get silly screens like this, which are supposed to make it bigger. Some of them have lights in them, like this one, but like this thing takes like 4 AA batteries. So if you want to use that, you're going to be using 8 AA batteries. The thing's going to be pretty heavy. I remember loving that thing when I was a kid, but now like I can't stand it. There was also the link cable, where Tetris was the first game to actually use this thing, and it would just plug into the side. A lot of people use it for Tetris, so you can go head to head. You can also use it for Pokemon, which was something people really used it for, because you need the link cable to catch them all. And you know, you gotta catch them all. You just gotta. So other things that came out for it. There was also a Gameboy printer. There was also a Game Boy camera. These both came out in 1998. There's also a Game Genie, lots of things. But like I don't have any of those things, so I won't really talk about them that long. So the games. There are about 600 games for the Game Boy, give or take like 50. I'm not exactly sure how many. I haven't really found a complete reliable list for them. But, you know, 600, give or take. Now if you have an NES, it'll be really easy to find games for this, because the games for the NES that were either ported to this or had sequels, or the series that were also made on Game Boy, the games were usually done fairly well. They were, like, the conversions were done really well, they were done faithfully. Same goes for any arcade games, like, you know, Pac-Man, Asteroids, anything like that. They usually did a pretty good job of doing the Game Boy. So, you know, if you liked Kid Icarus on the NES, you're probably going to like Kid Icarus on the Game Boy. The games here, as you can see, have a little notch right there. You can see it. I'll show you that one there. They have a little notch, so whenever you turn it on, there's a little part in there that stops you from pulling out your game in the middle. It'll never fall out, but in case, you know, you feel like pulling it out, I don't know. So games that I would recommend. RC Pro-Am, it's a great racing game. Donkey Kong, classic. Baseball. Now I'm going to say something about baseball, okay? Baseball is a good game, but you're never going to beat it. I have never beaten this game. I had a friend who took this game from the top of the USA to the bottom of the USA in a car trip. This is the only game that he bought, and he played it both ways. So he crossed the US twice playing this, and he never beat it. That's all he played for days, and he never beat it. So it's fun, but you're probably not going to beat it. It'll be frustrating. Any of the Donkey Kong Land games are really good. Of course, you have to get Tetris. You just have to. This was really the first, well, this and the NES version were actually the first legitimate licensed Tetris games ever made. Now, I know some of you are saying, well, no, the Tetris came out on the Commodore 64, or it came out on the IBM, it came out on the Famicom. Well, those copies were all illegitimate. They didn't actually have the rights. I actually bought fake rights, or imaginary rights, from a guy called Robert Stein, who claimed he had the rights, and Nintendo was actually the first one to get the rights, and there's actually a really interesting history behind this. I'll post a link to a video, so you can, if you want to watch a really good video on the history, or you can read up about it on the internet, but it's a really interesting story there. So any Tetris games are really good, like Tetris Attack, Tetris 2, anything like that. Super Mario Land 1 and 2 are both really good. Number 1 is in the Game Boy. And of course, you have to get some sort of Pokemon. If you did not play Pokemon and you had a Game Boy, like, you must have been the saddest kid around. Like, poor child. Did not have Pokemon. You gotta get Pokemon. This was actually one of the first games that I bought for myself. Kirby's Dreamland 2, Kirby's Dreamland 1 was also a really good game. Now there are actually some games like this, which you see here. It says Game Boy Color, and it is a Game Boy Color game, but you can actually play it on your original Game Boy. Any games like that will be a different color, but you can tell because it still has a little notch there. So any Game Boy Color games that has a little notch, you can actually still play it on your original Game Boy. Most of them will be black, like Dragon Warrior 1 and 2 here is black. Zelda DX, another great game. Pokemon Pinball, which is actually a really fun game. It has a little rumble there. I actually only got it, I only started playing it a couple years ago, and it's actually a lot of fun. So there are a lot of games, a lot of great games that I played when I was younger, and I can't show you. The Game & Watch gallery is good, Dr. Mario is good, Snow Bros, Pac-Man, Yoshi's Cookies, Kid Dracula, I loved that game when I was younger, Bubble Bobble, Harvest Moon Game Boy, and Pokemon the Trading Card Game, which is another Game Boy Color game, but you can play it on the original Game Boy. There was also games that I've never played, but I've heard a lot of good things about. I'll just run through them really quick here. Alien 3, any Final Fantasy games, the Mega Man games, Contra games, the Ultima games, Double Dragon, Street Fighter 2, R-Type, Kirby's Pinball, Worms, Legend of the River King, Wario Land, which is Super Mario Land 3, James Bond 007, Lemmings, Q*bert, Castlevania games, Battletoads, Ninja Gaiden, King of Fighters 96, Kid Icarus, Adventure Island. And you can see a lot of these are actually NES games as well. Asteroids, Bust-A-Move, Zoop, Bionic Commando, Earthworm Jim, Mystical Ninja, Batman the Animated Series, Mortal Kombat, Jurassic Park, the Bomberman games, Metroid 2, and Mario's Picross. So all those games I've never played, but I've heard they're really good, so they might be worth picking up. Speaking of picking up, should you get one of these babies? These things will cost you probably about $5 to $20 in a pawn shop or a garage sale. Online, I've seen them go up to $30. Games will go from like 50 cents to 15 bucks at pawn shops or garage sales. Online, I find the prices are starting to go up in recent years. They're usually going to be $5 or $8, but like a game online can cost, you know, 15, 20 bucks even, if they're really good. Most games will be around 8 bucks though. There are a lot of great games that made a lot of copies, like Pokemon. You'll be able to find that pretty easy. Tetris, you'll be able to find it pretty easy. So it's not a terribly expensive system to buy for. Again, I would try to buy it around your hometown. You will be able to probably find someone who has this in their basement somewhere, and they'll probably just, if not give it to you, like sell it to you for like 5 bucks. And you'll be able to pick up great games like Pokemon and stuff for it. Now if you don't want to get one of these original Game Boys, you can also get a Super Game Boy, which I will post a link to a video once I make it about it, talk all about that, so you can play original Game Boy games on that. You can also get any of the other Game Boys to play original Game Boy games on, except for the Game Boy Advance Micro. You can't play original Game Boy games on that, and you also can't use the DS because that's not technically part of the Game Boy line. You could also get a Game Boy player for your Nintendo GameCube, so you can play your original Nintendo games on it. One last thing before buying any of these games: if it is a game that has saving in it, like Zelda DX, make sure that the battery in it still works, because if not, well, you're kind of screwed and you won't really be able to play it. Mine doesn't work, and, well, I'm going to have to replace the battery, I guess. So that's all I really have to say about the Game Boy. I hope you enjoyed my buyer's guide / review, and remember, classic gaming never gets old.